You are listening to the ReRACEables podcast. Hello and welcome to the pre-show of the ReRACEables podcast, episode 12. We are about to go into the mega leg, folks. Quick thoughts, because we're about 2 minutes away. What are you expecting from the mega leg, Lizzie?
Definitely at least double of what we usually see, right? So maybe a couple roadblocks, maybe a couple detours. I don't know. A longer time without rest. I don't know.
Josh, anything big happen in the whole game?
I see movement. I see people coming from the bottom to the top and top to the bottom. I think it's going to be a wild ride.
Cole?
I want eliminations, deceit, lying, traitorship. I want alliances broken.
We'll see you. We'll see you midway through, folks. We'll be back. So, quick recap before we get into episode 8, the mega leg. Tom is in first place, 23 points. Josh second, 30. Lizzie 35. Nicole 37. Anyway, we didn't make our predictions. Who do we like to be first in the mega leg? Who do we like to be last? Start with first place, last place, Josh.
First place, Riley and Madison. Last place, KAYLYNN and Haley. Because I think Riley and Madison have the stamina. I also think that I think this is going to be a physical leg. I don't think this is like a mental game. It's a mental game, but not a mental leg. And then KAYLYNN and Kaylee are just like, you only have less than 9 lives, and they've already used up almost all of them. So go home already.
Nicole.
I agree completely, and to add on to that, I just see KAYLYNN and Kaylee and whatever. I don't see them doing well in India especially. It's grimy, it's dirty, it's gritty. They're gonna hate it.
Lizzie?
I agree with both Josh and Nicole about KAYLYNN and Haley going home. My rankings would benefit greatly from that. I've been wanting them to leave for the last 2 episodes. And I'm going to give this leg to Aparna and Ishwar. I hope that being back in India benefits them if they are able to communicate and get around easier than all the other teams. Then I think they'll have an advantage. So I hope that happens.
Here's where my sleeper pick with Ishwar and Aparna comes through. They're young. They're going to know the language. They're familiar with it. They're going to rock and roll. And I'm throwing a big curveball. I think Hung and Chi come in last.
Wow.
I think that they get out-physicaled in this leg.
Yeah.
And their everyday mom and dad catches up with them.
Wow.
We'll be back.
Wow.
Welcome back to the ReRACEables podcast, brought to you in part by TribalCouncilBlog.com, where we're covering all of Survivor and The Amazing Race. All right, so we just saw episode 8, 2 hours, the mega leg. And there's a lot to go over, but let's just start with India. Do you think it was appropriate that the mega leg was in India? Did it matter? Did it not?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting to see the highs and the lows of the country, right? Like we were traveling in those tuk-tuk carts.
Tuk-tuks or rickshaws, yeah.
Exactly. And like from that point all the way to the idea of traveling in a horse-drawn carriage. Like I thought that was so exciting to be able to see how much a country has to offer and the beauty within.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like this is one of those countries that people can't just rely on their Spanish that they kind of learned in junior high or something like that. It's a completely different culture, a completely different world for a lot of people. And so I feel like you're really put to the test being in a totally different place. And so doing the most in that one place really brings out a lot of different sides of people.
I like the different cultural aspects. We saw the smog test. We saw how food gets delivered. We saw Cyber City. We saw a mausoleum or a different temple of some sort. We saw a different other architectural monuments. We saw dentures get molded. We saw rickshaws. We saw bangle bracelets, you name it, we saw it. It seemed like everything down to a 108-foot long dinner table, and again, it seemed like another palace. We saw a more luxurious India than. Again, I haven't seen all of The Amazing Race. I've never been to India, but through the show, I feel the India that we've seen is way different than the India that we saw tonight.
Yeah.
I feel like we saw much more luxury, high class, everything from the clothes to the way this table is set, down to all the modes of transportation. But we didn't see that packed out train car with 50,000 people seemingly on one train car. So I wonder why that came to be. I don't know if it was about the money that the show has behind it or just the nature of the mega leg and trying to pack all this stuff and technology into one leg. But it was nice to get a sense of that city. It didn't seem as, what was the city?
Hyderabad.
Hyderabad. I'll edit that out. We saw a lot of Hyderabad, and I thought it was really awesome.
I thought it was awesome until we were just watching those people have to do the temple and the iPads, finding the AR, and then matching the turbans up top. I started to get bored. I think it was just like airing for a little too long.
Why do you think that is?
I think that's because the mega leg it looked like it was filmed in one day, like in real life. And even though there were multiple legs, it just meant that there wasn't enough time to capture footage, right? So if we split it up between 2 hours in one day, instead of a normal episode being one day and you can film 24 hours worth of footage, instead we were splitting up 24 hours between 2 days. So you have 12 hours and 12 hours. And you're trying to find storylines in there, and storylines don't always exist. So they were trying to create a storyline out of watching this happen, and I just got bored.
So instead of seeing the highlight reel packed into an hour, you thought that it was more of just like more downtime than we needed to be seeing.
Yeah, the other thing that I felt is that you can't see fatigue. Right? Like, I know that everybody was talking about how exhausting it was, but when you're like putting it on TV and you get a commercial break and then you come back, it's like it didn't really affect me that much that they were competing for during 4 challenges later rather than 2 challenges later like it normally would be. Yeah.
So is the mega leg
a mega disappointment? Is what
okay?
it
So
was.
I was gonna ask: overrated, underrated, properly rated? You would go
a mega underrating, well, a mega overrating.
Lizzie?
I think it should have just been 2 episodes because then we would have gotten to see another place. I always like the travel aspect of the show. Who's on which train, who catches which flight, who's smart about asking again, stuff like that. So when you stay in the same place, then you don't really get all of that because they could have done all of the second detour, the second roadblock in a different place. But yeah, I don't know. I might have a different opinion tomorrow too, so who knows?
But for now, overrated,
but
underrated?
for now, it
Probably
was exciting to have a new thing, but I would be okay if it didn't come back. Or if it did come back, do it in a new, fun, actually exciting way. If that makes sense.
Cole, mega leg, overrated, underrated, properly rated.
Underrated. I wish there were more twists and turns to it. Maybe a fast forward thrown in there or something new to spice it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you liked it or you disliked it?
I disliked it.
It was overrated.
It was overrated.
Okay. Not a lot of mega leg fans here. I'll finish it out. I thought it was overrated too. I'm with you, Lizzie. I really like the idea of going to different places. I was happy to see all those things we talked about in Hyderabad, but again, give me some other place or go to a different part of India, right? Give us a city, cyber capital city, and then go to rural, distant, remote India and challenge them in those ways. I get it. They wanted to pack it all in, and I guess you could really do that in any city, anywhere.
Yeah.
But I agree. It was tough to keep the interest, especially when the one challenge with the turbans and trying to find it. But as much as you like the technology, it's kind of how much drama is there, especially then when you have alliances and people telling them what to do, and you don't get to see somebody like James really struggle with something because he just asks and gets told what's what.
I'll add that the fatigue, I think, is the part that's exciting about it. It's like, who's going to last through a mega leg? That must be so difficult. And even though we couldn't see it this episode or this double episode, I think that it might come back next week where everyone's just going to be moving slow and exhausted. And so I'm interested to see if, like, it's just forgotten about and they got through it, or if this is something that, like, we saw that Aparna and Ishwar were having problems sleeping, and that was, like, affecting their racing. And I wonder if this is just going to take a deep toll on everybody in the race.
Let's move on to the detours and the roadblocks. Again, the Mega Leg had 2 detours, 2 roadblocks, more challenges, double the challenges, all that. The first detour was the Swiggy food delivery or the number trap, the motion sensor coding. Which one would we have chosen and why? Josh, Lizzie, which one would you have chosen?
I think the number trap.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's less running around. It's more sure answers. It's either you're right or you're wrong. You're not just running around in circles, which is a big thing that I think we've kind of landed on. It's like,
I don't like to navigate.
yeah. So I think once you get the hang of it, you get it. And then as far as a code goes, there's either a right answer or a wrong answer. And it just, that seems like...
I'm a numbers person, too.
Nicole?
I think we would have gone with the numbers. I think we're pretty good at figuring out puzzles and code. The code was pretty much a puzzle.
Yes.
And even like they were missing a letter, I called out bunker. You don't even need to look at the numbers. You can figure, it's like Wheel of Fortune. Figure it out. So definitely go with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think also, I would think this for both of you as well, that we're very methodical. I think we problem solve pretty good and could really break down the numbers, figure out the letters pretty quickly, and go from there. I think it also would have been cooler just to see that side of things, right? You're in the cyber city in India. I feel like it's the thing culturally that you should be doing more so.
Yeah.
And plus, I think the Swiggy was more challenging.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons. You're relying on the person that's navigating you. You're running around. Who knows what's going to happen on the street versus the coding one, you were in a building, you were stationary, and you were looking at a screen and doing virtual karate of some sort. So, but let's talk about Hung and Chi. They failed 12 or 13 times, I think it was, in the number one, and they switched. At what point do you guys think it's the right move to switch in the detour?
I think if you don't see yourself making any progress, you're making the same amount of mistakes over and over and not getting any better, then you're wasting your time. But if you see a slow, gradual improvement and you're like, okay, well, we have this game figured out, this puzzle figured out, then there might be incentive to stay. But I feel like they kept missing the same amount of ones and zeros, which is why, who was it? Chi was like, okay, 2 more times. And then they couldn't get it until they left. It's like, I feel like that was a smart move on their part.
However, I would add, I know you're running your own race, but once you start to see teams lapping you, and the fact that you are missing 5 or 6 ones and zeros, you know that this is not for you. Yeah. So I know you want to run your own leg, but I think sometimes it also depends on how the other teams around you are doing.
Right. And also think of what Hung is a good communicator. She was on the phone with him the whole time. They got exactly where they needed to go.
They did so well in that.
They did great at that, yeah.
They came so quickly to the next task.
So you just also got to know what your strengths are.
Seems like her strengths took over of being a mother.
Yeah.
And being on a phone and directing and
listening
and communication.
Yep.
very straightforward. I felt like that was her
it's
trying to get her kids in order to get out the door
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
We get the yield, comes up. Will and James want to yield Kaylee and KAYLYNN, and they actually do. Do we like that they yielded them, even though they were in first place, even though they were at the front of the pack? Do we agree with the yield there or no for Will and James?
No, because I think that you don't know how far behind they are. They could have caught up, and then you would have had bad blood going into the final 5. Like, that's not what you want. You just don't want... I don't think that this is the time for that. And I also always believe that you use the yield when you... I mean...
Say it again.
Yeah, when you're going to knock somebody out that you know you're going to beat, right? And you don't know you're going to beat them right now. And so I think it was a really risky move.
It paid off, though.
It paid off.
They got him out. And if they didn't use it then, they would have lost it. So
I think that was the biggest driving force, is that it was like the use it or lose it mentality.
Yeah, I
It's
could see
like,
that.
we might as well.
And they're super fans, right? They're on the race, they have a yield, they want to use it.
Yeah.
And they're going to use it, and they used it strategically, so good for them. And then we come up to the first roadblock at the temple, the matching the digital world to the real world. You have to look through the technology tablet under this temple and find the right person digitally that has the certain turban, and then run upstairs on the roof of it and find the matching actor that's wearing it. People were struggling with missing the right placement. They couldn't figure out the details on the turban. Teams were viewing the same digital guy and then competing for them. Was this too hard? Is that why it took so long? I know we mentioned that before. Was it too hard, or was it just too much going on? Like, what made this seemingly drag so much that made us kind of, like you said, Josh, bored?
the placement seemed to be the biggest challenge of it. And I think the fact that they needed 4, was it?
3.
3. It was just time consuming. Not very entertaining to watch.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if this was a 1-hour leg and right after this there was an elimination, how it would have played out. Because I almost feel like it would have been edited down and we wouldn't have been like complaining that it was too long or too challenging. Because I feel like a lot of challenges usually take 7-8 hours or whatever. And we don't say, oh, was that too challenging? Because it's edited in a way that it's getting through the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that it was stalling is the part that I think was the problem, not the challenge itself.
Right, and plus programming, they have to have either the 1 hour or the 2 hours. They can't really do an hour and a half
Yeah.
and cut out X amount of time from that challenge. But I think it's cool, though, to not completely bash it. Interesting to see the technology and the way they are weaving that into the race.
Yeah.
By going to that city and then showcasing the different technologies, the coding, now this digital technology that I guess is like a virtual reality kind of
Yeah, it was cool.
thing.
Augmented reality.
Augmented. How about just a quick note, the actors again?
Yeah.
The guys in the turbans?
The guys in the
walking
turbans
around?
just aimlessly walking around like like Sims characters.
God
or
bless
the
those
weak.
people. I feel like there are a group of those kinds of people on every leg, and they're always such troopers. They just got to be there and stand there and go where they're supposed to go. And I really always love when they are supportive of different teams. I think by the time KAYLYNN and Haley got there, she got like her first one or her second one, and they all stopped and clapped for her. It's like they've been there for so long. They know the game, and I always find joy in the humanity you see, because to the game they're just kind of props and pawns that you move out as you're supposed to, but they're real people and they're having a good time. I hope they get paid to do that.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to see a little break in the facade that they're supposed to be presenting in order to help the game along.
I thought it was great too, the way their thumbs up, thumbs down,
Yeah.
Roman
Oh my God.
Emperor
Yeah.
denial of some of the wrong guesses.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on from there, Will and James really dropped the bomb that the what did they call it? The Mayan 5 alliance was
The Mine Five.
the Mine Five.
They were in the
They
mine.
That's
created
right.
the alliance in the mine.
the salt mine.
Oh.
So the
Yeah.
Mine 5 alliance is dead. Go ahead, Nicole.
It's dead.
And it's really an alliance of 3: Will and James, Hung and Chi, and Riley and Madison. And we'll get to that a little bit later, but that kind of came up right after the turban matching virtual reality. Let's go to the second detour. Yeah, second detour. Now we're into the second episode. Was first off, let's talk about it. It was called This or That.
That was like a roadblock and a detour all smushed into one. The roadblock, you don't know what it is, but you have to decide what to do. The detour, you have a choice. And so when you put them together, choose thing number 1 you don't know or thing number 2 you don't know. It's like, wow, mega.
We both would have chose this.
Is that what we said?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, my reasoning was the only thing to go off of is I imagine this is closer to where you are and that is probably farther away. Although some teams really play the strategy of I bet less people are doing that. And that was true.
That was true. But with the roadblock comparison,
Mm-hmm.
in the detour you can change anyway.
Yeah.
So it didn't seem like there was such a penalty for choosing one or the other.
Right.
But
It was just like a little hang up. That's
I think
not
you
normal.
right, but did you have to go to, if you chose this, did you have to go to the place and then you got the clue of what it was and so
Yeah.
you lost the time maybe?
Yeah, I think that's all it was. Because Hung and Chi did that. They got there and then she was like, read the other one. And then they left the bangles and went over and did the teeth.
Oh, wow.
Let's hold off on the teeth for a moment. Because that was unbelievable. But let's start. Josh, does this challenge, the bangles, the needle in a haystack, does that meet your theory of the definite answers and this is why you would choose it?
Yeah, I think the definite answers gets tricky though because we've seen for years the like find the one drawer in a set of trunks or find the one key in a set of something, and those, while they are like very clear and linear, they're also so much more unpredictable than when you have the fate in your own hands. But the bangles didn't seem that tough. I mean, there was a small kind of cart and you had to match them, and I don't think anyone really struggled with it. It was just time consuming.
But it did have that definitive, these are the ones you're looking for. And
Yeah.
it seemed pretty easy to identify them,
Yeah.
or easy enough.
Yes, I agree.
So would we have chosen this or that, Nicole?
I think we would have chosen that.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't have done the bracelets? You think we would have done the teeth?
Yeah, because I think the messy one, the one where you have to get down and dirty, those are usually quicker.
I think,
That's true.
yeah, I agree. I mean, even though the bangles fits my quota of like what it means to like have a linear task, you literally just have to like get a mold of someone's mouth and then polish the dentures. Like that to me seems like the much easier, much quicker in and out task.
Well, don't forget the third aspect of it.
Putting the teeth
Yeah,
in the mouth.
ramming the dentures into some person's mouth. That's
Some
just
gummy
yeah,
person.
it was not pretty. The one lady even had to throw her hand up like something. It was just being jammed too hard into her mouth.
God.
So let's talk about that. So the dentures mold that cost apparently $3. That's
In
all it
American
cost
dollars, yeah.
to have
crazy.
completely new dentures put in. What was the worst or the grossest part? I know we skeeved out a little bit by the whole thing. There was some moans and groans and people looking other way. But what was the grossest part or the worst part?
I was having flashbacks to 3rd grade Nicole getting fitted for braces, gagging on the
Mold
goop that they put in to mold your mouth. But I think worse than the goop was fitting it in the gummy people.
I can't disagree. Yeah. That's about where I was at too. I had my hands in front of my face. I just couldn't.
I think we're living in a time too that we're so protective of our own personal space and our own personal hygiene and not invading that 6-foot rule. And so watching people stick fingers into mouths of somebody who they don't know, who lives in the middle of a poorer country like India.
In the middle of the hustle and bustle of the city,
yeah,
too.
It was just all of these factors, I think, weighed in on itself that you can't be doing that.
That's true. Yeah.
Watching it definitely in the 2 years later COVID era that we are in, you notice it that much more, and it kind of jumps off the screen that much more. Not just because you're literally shoving your hand in someone's mouth, but how we have been dealing with life the last X amount of time, and the fact that you would literally not even go near somebody, but let alone put your hands in their mouth, gloves or not.
Yeah.
But, again, an interesting cultural aspect to jump into and complete on The Amazing Race, that this is something that people are doing. And it seems like it's a regular piece of cultural life.
Anyone can be a dentist.
Yeah.
Turns out.
Pretty much. And it's not bad. Not a bad deal for $3, right?
Yeah.
All right, moving on from the detour, there was a rickshaw to the palace with the last yield of the season. So going into that, what's the strategy? Do you use it? Do you feel obligated to use it? Do you have to use it at all? Do you make a big move? Do you just get the last person out? Lizzie, what are you thinking?
You get the last person out. It's the use it or lose it. There's not very many teams left. In the first few legs, you can be like, we choose not to yield anybody. That's fine. Somebody else will. But they're kind of getting down to it now. There's not very many teams left. And you want to get rid of the dead weight at the end. So do what you need to do.
Yeah, but not from first place.
So do you use it there?
If I'm in first place, no.
But you're on The Amazing Race.
Yeah.
You have the yield. You did that challenge in the salt mine. You got your hourglass. You made sure you got a 20-minute one. And you just say, let it die? Nikki?
Dumb. It's dumb. You do whatever it takes to ensure that you are not last. You never know what could happen. You could get a flat tire on your way to the pit stop. You never know.
Yeah.
Just use it.
Even if you're in the horse and buggy, the wheel could come off. You could hit the one cobblestone or...
You never know.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, Josh. If you're in first place, let somebody else do it. It's not really helping you per se, but...
It can only hurt you.
But I think you have to use it. You're on the race. You have it. It's useless after this.
You're racing your own race. You're racing your own race.
No, you're not.
Yes, you are.
No, you're not.
Yeah, you are.
It's not your own race. It's not a race against the clock. It's a race against other people.
If you weren't going to use it, somebody else was definitely going to use it. I think the best play was to put it on someone that's going to, at the bottom,
Yes, that's
put them further out. There's no reason to
Oh.
yield somebody that's in second place right behind you.
But you don't quite know where everybody is. That's my point.
That's true.
Because if you're like, well, our biggest risk is Will and James, and we're not racing against the clock, like we're racing against them, and that's who we want to beat. Giving them a 20-minute penalty is just going to make them pissed off, so that when there's 4 teams left, they're going to help every other team but you.
True.
You're just throwing yourself off the race. So I think that Riley Madison got lucky by choosing KAYLYNN and Haley, but I don't think it was a smart strategic move.
I think in this instance, it kind of was a smart strategic move because they knew that KAYLYNN and Haley had the yield from before. They knew that they were starting out in last. They got pushed out 20 minutes earlier in the leg, and they knew that pushing them back even farther, there was no way they were going to catch up. You eliminate the dead weight, and that's what it is. I think in other circumstances, there's more of an argument there, but in this particular one, I think they did make the right strategic move.
Yeah, another thing to add is that there are 6 teams left, and you're in a 5-team alliance.
Well,
you
yeah,
can't.
that's
You,
true.
even if another team got like sent to the back, yielded,
Yeah.
then you can't. You have to yield the team that's not a part of the 5.
Yeah.
Which is also where alliances get tricky.
So they get to the last roadblock of the mega leg at the Palace, setting the 108-foot table. They had to set 10 place settings very precisely based on some painting. KAYLYNN and Haley do get yielded by Riley and Madison, which was to help Hung and Chi. So what do you think would be the most difficult aspect of the table setting?
Figuring out the parameters.
The 14 by 24 and the whole ruler thing?
And the thumb. Yeah. I mean, what I was thinking about this earlier with the AR challenge in the temple, I think that the person who comes in first place is going to be there the longest. Because they're trying to figure it all out. And everybody who comes later starts to get all of the clues that they had to figure out. So even though other teams come in later, all of their times are shorter, and it actually makes the game closer. I think it's the same thing with this. I think Riley had to get it checked twice or 3 times before he figured out, oh, it's the 24, the 14, and the thumb. Whereas James did it first, and the other teams did it in one try because they saw all of the mistakes that the first place team did.
Yeah, and plus they get to use the alliance again. They get to disguise themselves to Gary and D'Angelo and kind of break away from the mine 5 to the they don't have a name yet for the 3, but
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure they will, but that's where you really see again those small little windows of an advantage that Riley and Madison's been there and they learned this and this and this, so now they're going to tell their friends so that they can try to get ahead and secure first and second. That bit of trust going forward into the final 5 teams now and try to get them to the 4 and the 3. And these little opportunities to build that much more trust is big. Because at the end of the day, they're all going to say the same thing. When it's the final 3, they're gonna race.
Yeah.
And it's going to be whoever wins is whoever's going to win. But there's still room for the alliance to help, but even if they have to shrink the alliance to do so. So do we think James and Riley hiding the ruler aspect from Gary is fair or foul, smart or dumb?
I think that's how you edge people out of an alliance, is to withhold information. They were doing what they planned on doing.
They were wasting time.
Why do you say that?
Because they weren't focusing on their own task.
Uh-uh.
By focusing on, Gary's in there. Okay, great, now I can go over there. It's the same thing that where Hung and Chi got messed up. When you start to care about giving other people information more than you care about running your own race.
Yeah, and they get away with it because there's still 6 teams and
They get away with it because Boston Rob convinces everybody else to also do it. So once everybody is doing it, then of course if you're in first place, your second that you're doing it doesn't matter because the 3 teams behind you are also doing it. As soon as you start messing up, like as soon as Hung and Chi wait to tell 3 other teams, they're now the team that's behind because nobody else in those teams are telling other people. You're hurting yourself.
I thought it was interesting though, because Gary definitely caught on that he wasn't
Yeah,
being
he's
helped.
not dumb.
I just thought it was funny.
But-
I agree in them edging out Gary and D'Angelo for this alliance because I agree that they haven't really been contributing to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was funny. He was like, no one's helping me. They're all talking and no one's helping. Just saw it in a very lighthearted way. I'm sure he didn't, but
Yeah, it's one thing to run out and like put up the number 4 and go away, like, and that's like the trick to it. But it's another thing to be like, hey, come on over here. So it's gotta be 14 by 24 by you know, like, but like once you start to get to that stuff, then you're like, run your own race. Damn it.
Just one sidebar here. We got to this challenge and we were viewing it. The conversation shifted to, I'd like to see somebody be doing this challenge. Or who said, somebody said, it would be great to see this team. Oh, you said Leo and Alana would be great at this
I said
challenge.
Leo and Alana would be good at this, and then Josh said it would. I don't think Nathan and Cody could.
Right.
I think just coming off fresh after your interview with them, they are like still stuck in my brain, and so. But this is exactly the kind of thing they would have excelled at: preciseness, measurements, very calculated movements, and that's what you're judged on. They would have breezed through it.
And I'm sure whichever one of them would have done it, because I'm sure they had that conversation
Yeah.
watching it, or
Yeah.
once they learned it, I'm sure that they were probably very angry that they couldn't do that, because they would have
Mm-hmm.
blazed through it.
Yeah. Yep.
But my question is, we brought up the other teams, Cody and Nathan. We love them, but does it seem like it would be impossible for them to still be in the race? I know they got out and whatever the circumstances
Yeah.
were early. Them or Kelly and Levon. Does it seem like it would be impossible for them to still be in it?
Nathan and Cody would have had a hard time. Yeah. Yep.
But I also did not see Kaylynn and Haley this far either.
Neither did I. They were in by the skin of their teeth, though. It was like
Yeah, but
they
they
would have
did
been
it.
eliminated 3
They
legs
did
ago
it.
if it hadn't been for non-elimination
I
legs.
did it.
Not because of, I know that if they ever hear this, sorry, but not because of their like extreme talent in doing all these tasks. They were saved because it was a non-elimination, and then they continued to be in last leg after leg.
It's hard for me to say, well, I could never see Nathan and Cody here when I'm seeing teams that I didn't think would ever be here.
I mean, I thought Hung and Chi would be gone a while ago, so I don't think I deserve a say in this.
She's again referencing her number 11 ranking of Hung and Chi, which is really killing her. But my number 8 for Hung and Chi is about to start killing me too. So it's definitely interesting to think about some of the other teams that were lost in the previous legs and projecting them into this deep in the race
Yeah.
and trying to keep up with ultimately the teams that we thought were stronger from the beginning and even before the race started.
Mm-hmm.
So always it's interesting that came up during the actual leg. Last thing, so Riley and Madison become team number 1. They win the 7-day Caribbean cruise. Team number 2 is Will and James.
With a beach party.
With a beach party.
With the Travelocity gnome
Of course.
in every shot.
Shameless advertisement there, just quick.
I'm quite entertained by
I like it.
I don't
I
have
like
an
it.
issue with it
You,
at all.
You're in on the...
Yeah, sure.
He's harmless, right?
He's harmless.
Okay. It's kind of become a part of the race too, I guess. But
Yeah.
Will and James 2nd, Gary and D'Angelo 3rd, Hung and Chi and Ishwar and Aparna come in within seconds of each other, 4th and 5th, and then finally the 9 lives are done and KAYLYNN and Haley are eliminated.
It was due time. Due time.
A sigh of relief.
Why though? Why? Because is it the fact that the non-eliminations just happen to fall both times to them?
Yeah, well, not only they were my lowest ranking team before this episode, and I do keep that in my mind at all times. So they were supposed to be gone 3 legs ago, according to me. But at this point, it's like, just having seen where the cards have fallen, they've been in the back, saved twice. It's like, God, just go.
It's time. It was the past due. It's dead. They're dead.
Josh, slow burn. Is this is the best example?
Yeah, we've seen it coming. We've seen it coming, and I think they go just like we've seen Gary and D'Angelo starting to like steal taxis, and people are snickering about them. Just like we've been seeing Ishwar and Aparna like at the back of the pack, like consistently week after week. I think like that is a clear showing of who's gonna go.
What about Hung and Chi? They dropped to the bottom half, I think, for the first time.
Yeah.
I don't remember off the top of my head, but
I think that I think it's a slow burn. I don't think it's next week they're out.
Right.
I think that there are weaker teams that have been burning for longer.
So who is the strongest team then at this point?
I think it's a tie between Riley and Madison and Will and James.
Yeah, I do. And what was interesting that I just want to point out is when we all said that we were going to rank everybody, the first response that I said is, the question is, which of the two male teams are going to win?
And how do you feel now, thinking back?
I still don't know. I mean, I think that Will and James have burned too many bridges, but I also think that Riley and Madison maybe aren't as loud and vocal and as strong, but they can also swift under the radar.
Are the bridges that Will and James burning with those teams, they're leaving. They're gone.
Yeah.
They had burned a bridge with Alana and Leo. They're gone. They burned a bridge with KAYLYNN and Haley. They're gone. So I don't know if it really matters.
You don't need the tribe to come back to vote for you to win. It's different.
It seems that it was definitely KAYLYNN and Haley's time, and they were definitely the weakest team, even though I had them fourth, and I thought they had a chance. I did. I thought they were sleepers. I thought that they had... Well, no, I thought they were contenders, actually. And they contended for a while, but they were more of a sleeper pick, I guess, in hindsight. I probably would have switched them out with Hung and Chi and put Hung and Chi in that 4 slot. Maybe everybody shifts down a bit. But I think the strongest team is Will and James at this point. I don't think it's Riley and Madison.
Really?
Yeah. I think Will and James have...
Riley and Madison just came in first place.
I know that. And they have shown no flaws. But... Will and James are playing the best social game.
Yeah.
Even though this isn't Survivor, they are playing far and away the best social game. It seems like they're kind of calling the shots. They have people like Riley and Madison coming to them and helping them out, as well as Will and James haven't really burned the bridge with Gary and D'Angelo, right? Riley withheld the information. James didn't really withhold it. He got it on the first try and was probably out of there. I just think that they're smarter than everyone at this point with the game, not necessarily the smartest people.
Yeah, but the game gets you to the final 3.
That's true.
And the final 3 you have to win on your own. I have not seen a challenge where James or Will have not asked another team what to do or how to do it or for advice. So they are playing a strategic game and they're going to get to the final 3. But I think when left on their own vices, I don't know if they're going to be able to edge these other really strong and smart and physically fit teams.
Well, I think that segues into the preview that we saw for episode 9 next week. The U-turn is back. I think it was a double U-turn, if I'm not mistaken.
Great.
And the preview clues us in that basically Gary and D'Angelo have to get there first, because otherwise it's on them. And if it's a double U-turn, 2 teams are going to get hit with it. So even if they do get hit with it, even if you're the first ones, somebody else is going to be lagging behind. And I think if Gary and D'Angelo get U-turned, can they still U-turn someone? Yes, right?
No. You have to finish the challenge before you can U-turn.
Okay. So maybe somebody won't use the U-turn. Maybe only will use maybe there will only be 1 U-turn used, and maybe if they don't get there, maybe it'll be their time. But I still think Will and James are the strongest, and we'll see what happens. But congrats to Josh and Nicole. Their predictions of Riley and Madison for the first place and KAYLYNN and Haley for the last place came true. Good job by you guys. And congrats to Lizzie on the KAYLYNN and Haley for last place.
Oh, my pleasure.
How'd you do, Tom?
I had my hot take. It fizzled out. Hung and Chi they stuck it out. They're switching on the detours. Seems to work.
Mm-hmm.
I still am bookmarking that. I think it will come back to bite them at some point.
Yeah. See, Hung and Chi, I think if they made it to the final three, I think they would win.
Because
I just don't think they're gonna make it to the final three. But I don't know who else would be in the final three.
I think Ishwar and Aparna have third place written all over them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I
I
can see
think
that.
they're young.
I could see
They're
that.
smart. They've been hanging around. They're not as big of a threat as Gary and D'Angelo, so they would be less likely to be U-turned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna predict right now that they're gonna come in third.
You think Aparna Ishwar, Will and James, Riley Madison? Top
Yeah.
three.
See, I don't have an order,
Wow.
but I think it's going to be Hung and Chi, Will and James, and Riley and Madison.
Wow.
I think Will and James are gonna win. I think they're gonna win, and Riley and Madison second, Ishwar and Aparna third. And I think that they're gonna team up, and they're gonna use Hung and Chi and whoever they can to try to get Gary and D'Angelo out in either this leg or the next, and then from there it'll be those other three: Ishwar and Aparna, Will and James, Riley and Madison.
You heard it here first, November 25th.
Hot takes.
Prediction.
All right.
Thanksgiving Eve.
Yes, Thanksgiving Eve. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone out there. To our friends Josh and Lizzie, thanks for joining us.
Always
My
a
wife
pleasure.
Nicole.
Yeah.
Let's have a wonderful holiday, everyone, and thank you, Amazing Race, for the mega leg on the Thanksgiving Eve.
Thank you, Phil.
Always thank you.